This is the best Yu-Gi-Oh set in years. So if you keep up or you don't keep up, I don't know. We have Power of the Elements coming out the coming week. And I know every single Yu-Gi tuber ever will always hype up every single set saying this is the best unboxing, best. I get it. But this time it's true. If you want power in your deck, holy shit. So we're gonna go over some of the big cards. Some of the cards not everyone is talking about either, because of course everyone's talking about Sprite and Tier Elements, but there's more in this set that has like major impact. So let's go over that right now. Also, if you want to buy any cards, TCG Player link is in the description, so you use that and then you support the channel indirectly. But I will also be going over some of the cards that might be a bit expensive right now, and I'm like, maybe wait with this one. But that's later. First, let's go over some of the cards in this set that have major impact. We start off with this ass. Now, he's cute, right? But essentially this thing, for some reason, was released with an effect that isn't once per turn. If you read while in attack position, once per turn, roll a die, blah, 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 doesn't really matter. You special summon one Morphtronic monster from your graveyard whose level is equal to or lower than the result, so from the die. Now, the lowest thing on a die is a 1, right? Telephone itself is a 1. So you roll any die and you can forever revive Telephone itself. So Telephone revives Telephone, which revives Telephone, which revives Telephone. This means you can play Cannon Soldier, Toon Cannon Soldier, or anything that tributes monsters to then deal damage to basically FTK your opponent. So there's a lot of people already trying out various FTKs where they kill a Telephone and then get the Telephone back and so forth. And basically, there's a lot of ways to reach FTK with this card, so you gotta be aware of. Now, is it the best deck? I don't know about that. Going second, I don't think anyone has figured out a list yet that actually wins there as well. So going first, you FTK, okay, cool. You're gonna auto win going first, but you still have to go second sometimes as well. So for a major event, it might be risky unless you figure out some kind of build that lets this thing go second. If someone figures out a Telephone deck that goes first and second, it's over. This shit just FTKs. Your opponent doesn't get to play the game. GG. Does that mean you have to go out and buy this right now? Well, first of all, it's a common, so who cares? But again, it's not about like, go buy this right now, it's tier 0. It's more like, be aware that it exists, you know, respect the fact that it exists, keep it on your watch, even if you're not gonna play it yourself. There's a good FTK. Next, we have Garuda, Wings of Resonant Light. This card is a incredible super polymerization target. So it basically needs two monsters with the same type and attribute, but different names. So there's so many cards in the game that share type and attribute that you can now basically super poly away from your opponent. One good example, for example, is the Sprite deck makes Totally Awesome and Dupe Frog, which is both aqua and water. So boom, you steal that, your opponent's board falls apart. Also sometimes have Sprite Elf and Sprite Red, which are thunder and fire. So super poly, boom, their board is gone. But that's not all, because if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can draw one card. So after using this, you know, after having super poly, then you do something else with it, you draw a card, and you can also send this to the graveyard with other cards that then let you draw cards. So for example, a Nadir Servant is now basically a Sky Striker Engage, a Dogmatica Punishment, or a new card, Ultimate Slave. This card basically is the next Dark Ruler, the next Forbidden Droplet, the next Triple Tactic. It's a kind of going second board breaking card. It's a secret rare, so assume that it's going to be expensive, because it's one of those, you know, staple type of cards that people can put in their extra deck depending on the meta. And basically your opponent cannot respond to it with monster effects. So you spin something away, you send something from your extra deck, and then you get rid of something from your opponent. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And so if you send Garuda, now the card also refunds itself. Now you do have to send the thing that you're targeting. So for example, if your opponent has a fusion, you can send Garuda, but if they have a link, you can't. So you do have to play certain targets in your extra deck. You know, you have to play a Synchro, an Xyz, and a Link, and a Fusion in order to fully use this card. But regardless, again, it will be like a meta pick. Some metas, this card will be broken. Other metas, this card will be dog shit. But it's one of those things to watch out for. And if your deck auto loses to this card, and it's a meta where a lot of people are playing it, you know, you might have to think twice. Now, this is something a lot of people are already talking about, but a card that I really want to talk about is the Punk Jam Field Spell. This card is Pot of Greed and more. You basically can banish a Punk from graveyard to special summon a Punk from hand, which is cool, you know, if you gotta keep on extending twice per turn. If a Punk pays life, to activate an effect, you draw a card. So this card by itself is draw 2 on your turn if you've used 2 Punks, but then if you use Punks on your opponent's turn, and Punks do that, you also draw 1 or 2 depending on how many you can use. So this card is like draw 2 on my turn, draw 2 on your turn, draw 2 on my turn, As long as this thing is on the field, there's no way you're losing a resource battle. It is absolutely insane. And right now, we have so many people talking, oh, Sprite is insane, Tearlaments is insane. And that's true. You know, those decks are really, really good. But it's making it to a point where a lot of people are not really talking about, you know, the other weird cards in this set. So be aware of that. This field spell is huge. And speaking of huge, we also have a Punk Synchro. We don't want just a broken field spell. We also want the broken Synchro. This thing is sleeper. Now, of course, I've seen some people talk about it. It's not like no one knows, but not that many people know either. You know how punks are always used to make like a Chaos Ruler? Well, now you kind of want to think twice about it. This card, when you make it, can search for a Psychic. This makes it so if you want to play Virtual World and you want to make it more consistent, you can now jam in a get it? Jam? Oh. You can jam in a Punk engine and you basically have a Lulu searcher. You can just go search for it because it's a Psychic. If you want to make a board that's not as weak to a Dark Ruler no more or a Droplet, you can use this to search for a Ghost Ogre. So not all of your interaction will be on your board, which is also really insane. But it can also look for an extender if you want to, you know, play beyond with this card. And then after that, if this is in your graveyard and your opponent targets one of your punks or activation something, then it comes back. And then, of course, you can use its search again. So overall, we're starting to see like a punk deck that draws a billion and keeps on interacting and searching and interacting and searching. And it's really, really interesting. I'm a big punk fan. You already know this. And so this card just builds on that. And it's also level 8. So you make this with Deer Note and any of the level 3 punks. And you just extend beyond and beyond. And you know, I gotta say, I play with this deck. And I'm like, damn, do I want to make Chaos Ruler? Which is something people are calling broken. And some people even are asking it for it to be banned. And I'm like, well, Chaos Ruler isn't as good as this thing sometimes. So that's like a huge deal. So Punk Jam Baby right here, super, super strong. And again, not that many people are talking about it. Everyone is talking about Sprite and Tearlament for good reason, but you know, don't sleep on this. Next, of course, Sprite. We have to talk about Sprite. All the Sprites are insane. Gigantic Sprite is insane. Sprite Elf is insane. Sprite Blue and Sprite Jet are insane. They look for Sprite Red and Carrot. They have Sprite Starter. They have Sprite Smasher. Sprite is a crazy archetype. So, you know, it is likely that his best deck or second best deck, you know, at least easily in the top 3. We'll see as, you know, the set comes out and people are starting to solve stuff and there's some major events and so forth. Everything will be more solved, but it's insane. It's insanely strong. Of course, I have to mention it if we're making a Power of the Elements video, but it's pretty known now. Everyone's talking about it. Oh, and also go check out this beautiful playmat at zerodamagegaming.com. Use the code SOLEMN for a discount. Then we have Tearlaments. Once again, really, really solid. It does get better with the Ishizu support that we might be getting in like, what, November? When we get like that weirder set. But basically, you can splash this in a bunch of fusion type of decks. Some people are playing like Tearlament Shaddoll. Others are playing Tearlament Hero. Others are playing Tearlament Branded. Some people are playing Tearlament Punk because punks can make like Chaos Ruler and then Mill 5 can get your Tearlaments plays going. But overall, there's a bunch of ways to play Tearlaments. Oh, also a lot of people are splashing Splite into everything as well. So be aware of that. Both of these decks, Splite and Tearlament, are like lean engines. And you can choose how lean you make them, of course, but they are very splashable. So it's very possible that we figure out that best deck is actually Tearlament plus something or Splite plus something. So again, that'll take time. We'll see what happens there. But of course, everyone knows about us. It's not a surprise. What is kind of a surprise is Exosister. Now, of course, plenty of people know about it, but it's not quite as in the face as Splite and Tearlament. Some people are talking about this stopping Splite and Tearlament. Well, I will see if that's the case. But the reason this deck got so much better is because of the new stuff right here. So also keep that in mind. You know, Exosister before this set was kind of, you know, okay, cute. Now it's actually real. So do keep that in mind. For some more stuff people aren't talking about, we have Melfis. Yeah, I like Melfis. And Wallaby, or after translation, I guess it's Wally, is incredible. If you know the old Melfi combos with like Puppy and Catty, and then that makes Cantalos or whatever the hell it's called, you know, those combos were pretty okay, but they weren't that big. Wallaby is basically saying, how about we double those combos? This card is incredible. There's some other Melfis in here as well. Yeah, like you have the little seal that then synchros in your opponent's turn, so it's kind of like a Hop Ear Squadron, but that's more searchable and in archetype. Overall, Melfi, you know, went from a complete joke of a deck, in my opinion, to solid. You know, is it best deck? I don't know about that, but it can do a lot. It can also sidelock really reliably, so if that's something you want to do. It can also sidelock in the standby phase, or draw phase even, so it plays around Dark Ruler no more, if you're interested in that. So overall, you know, solid archetype, don't sleep on it. Can also make Herald in your opponent's turn. A lot of little things this deck can do. And what's also interesting is, look, it's level 2. So if you want to make certain connections right here, level 2, Melfi, level 2, you know, some people can play around with that. Next, we have a card that almost no one is talking about, and I'm about to rep it right here. Instant Contact. This is a new Neos card. I'm gonna say it. I think this card is underrated. Basically what it does is like, it's an instant fusion for Neos fusion, but you can't fully utilize them unless you have elemental hero Neos in your deck. But I say fuck that. What I'm reading is make a level 7 warrior from your extra, boom, without having to play a brick. So that means this is like a really easy way to make Isolde. This is a really easy way to make rank 7s. This is a really easy way to, you know, just have a level 7 for synchros. Like it can act the same way as a Wandering Griffin Rider can, but without any restrictions, without needing to play, well, Wandering Griffin Rider is really good, but if you were playing any other level 7 extender just for it being a level 7 extender, that would be a potential brick in your deck, whereas this is never going to be, you know, this is never going to be a Garnet. This is a starter. So Instant Contact, while I don't currently know like how you would abuse it, I'm not saying, wow, I know the broken combo here. The fact that this just puts a warrior level 7 out of nowhere on the board that you don't have to main deck makes this interesting. Again, is it broken right now? No, but I think it's, you know, it has potential. Also, interestingly, Neos has a bunch of attributes. So if you're making like a dark warrior deck, you have your dark. If you're making a wind deck, you have the wind. It's not on the card, but it exists. If you need a warrior water for some reason, again, like you have a bunch of options here and it just spits it out. So like in a similar vein as Ready Fusion in certain decks where people were like, damn, I really need this level 5 tuner thing, or I need this level 2 Alevane thing. If you need any other level, if you need a level 7 for some reason, which Ready Fusion can't give you, boom, you have your level 7 Ready Fusion. Again, I'm not saying it's broken right now, but it's something to keep in the back of your mind. That's at least the first thing I thought when I saw this card. Next, we have Branded Expulsion. Again, not many people are talking about it. I do have to say, Chris Lofton, YCS winner from a few months ago, made a pretty interesting combo with it, where you basically stop your opponents from playing the game. Like you can special summon something into your opponent's field that then doesn't allow them to play at all. And of course, you can also use this to play other kinds of bullshit locks. Like you will probably see this card being played in very unfair branded decks. So that's another thing to look forward to. And again, not many people are talking about it. Everyone is so focused on the Sprite and the tier elements that they're not really looking at some of these other options. Again, we'll see who's right, but it's still good to know about cards and interactions like this. Oh, and speaking of that, let's go over the TCG Player right now to check out some prices. So the first thing we see here is Sprite Blue for 99. I think that's just BS. Like we can see here sales history, a bunch of sales at $100. I don't see that holding. Like maybe I'm wrong. Sprite is really hyped right now and it might be the best deck in the format, but really $100? I don't know. Like I recall stuff like Moye being like what, 60, 70. You had like Ecclesia the Virtuous. Was that also a secret? I don't really remember the specifics, but I don't really remember the main monster in archetypes like this reaching like the triple digit. Well, maybe on release, you know, but then the product comes out and then prices tend to usually go down at least, you know, I don't see this holding, but again, maybe it does. Maybe it does. It's really hard to predict, but I don't see it. I think this card will level at 70 if it performs. Like if Sprite is actually like the best deck or top tier, I can see this being 70. If it kind of underperforms to what people were thinking, maybe it'll be like 50 or something. 99? 104? I don't know about that. I would be, and again, I'm speaking against myself here because if you go and use my TCG Player link in the description and buy this, that helps me, but I don't know. This card, I wouldn't buy at 19. Again, maybe I'll end up being wrong, but 99 sounds very, very expensive. Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer was also interesting. 510, whereas market price is 230. We see barely any listed. Now, Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer is a fan favorite for hero fans, of course, but without Verte, it's not being spammed in top meta decks. I could see this holding this type of price if it was truly, you know, spammed in top decks, but that's not the case right now. So unless we see that tier element hero deck being best deck, I don't think so, but it's possible, then maybe. But otherwise, no way. This will go down in my opinion. The Charmer, I don't have an opinion on. Primeval Planet Perlerino, is that the tier element? Oh my god, the tier element field is 78. That's not holding in my opinion either. I wouldn't go buy it. If you really can't wait, you know, knock yourself out, use my link in the description. I would love that, but I don't know. I wouldn't be paying 77 for a field spell. Ultimate Slayer at 58. Again, so this is the card we were talking about earlier. This card going second, potentially crazy. 58, not bad. It could go lower. We saw in Rise of the whatever the hell, we saw triple tactics talents and not droplets. Droplets held pretty good, but triple tactics talents go down quite a bit. And then droplets actually also went down. Droplets like fell, and then people were like, oh, this card is actually crazy, and then it started gradually rising back up to its triple digit craziness. So I don't know, it'll depend on how played this card is, but at 58, you know, usually you want to wait a little after release. Usually you want to be like, okay, so stuff is being released, all of the vendors are opening their products, so the coming week, you know, most prices will get some push down because a lot of supply will be hitting the market at once. But I think if this lowers slightly, you know, to 40, I would not hesitate. I think if this card does what I think it does in the meta, I think this card will be crazy. Again, it'll be meta dependent. There's metas where triple tactics is insane, and there's metas where it's dog shit, and there's never really metas where droplets is dog shit, but actually you could argue the coming meta, it might not be that great against Sprite, for example. So, you know, you want to kind of think of that one. Then Marta at 38. I don't have enough experience with Exosisters to know if this is expensive, because I don't know if like Exosister is like secretly close to best take, but I don't think it's close to best deck. And then we have the Tearlament Rhino Heart at 20, Starter at 20, wow. Kaleido Heart at 19, Gigantic Sprite at 16, Kurikara Divincarnate at 24. So this Kurikara thing, actually, we could have probably mentioned it in the cards, you know, people aren't talking about that much. This is basically going to be like a kaiju, but the problem is that it only works on monsters that your opponents used effects of that turn. So if your opponent did some kind of, you know, like Sidelock, for example, but that's not the best example, but, you know, stuff like that, then this card will be insane when you can, you know, if they activated some type of effect on your turn and now you can just tribute it for this. But then some metas, it will be dog shit. I think one of those metas will probably be the coming one. I do not see this card being insane then. But still, it's like a good side deck type of option. I think this will suffer a similar fate as Alpha, the Master of Beasts, where, you know, it was hella hyped on release and then gradually people noticed, damn, we're not really running this right now. But then some metas, it'll suddenly, you know, show its beautiful head. Then we have Sprite Elf at 15. Sprite Elf at 15 isn't awful. Elf is played a lot. If anything, a Gigantic Sprite at 16 is like pretty expensive in comparison, because you play Elf at like 2 and some people play 3, whereas Gigantic Sprite you play at 1 or 2 is what I've been noticing. So, you know, the fact that Elf is cheaper than Sprite when usually they're both at 2, but Elf is more likely to be at 3 and Gigantic is more likely to be at 1. You know, that's a little bit of a arbitrage difference here. But again, we'll see when all of the supply hits the coming days. Instant Contact at 9, that'll probably go down. Yeah, I think this will be a sleeper. I think it'll go down more. Goti Secret Rare, that's the fish thing. I don't know how good that is. From what I saw, like whenever I see replays of Goti, I feel like, wow, that's dog shit. But with the coalescent big fish thing, you know, it might be interesting. I don't know. I might be completely wrong, but so far Goti doesn't seem great. Draco, Utopian Aura, Ashura King, what the hell? Garuda 5. Garuda is that this thing, by the way, the super poly target. It's an ultra, it's a good ultra. If we see this actually being like a main deck like a main staple for people, it might be interesting even at 5. But again, once we have release going, I think you'll see some of these like niche ultras go down a fair bit, but then they should grow over time. Again, it's not really about like timing the market. I'm gonna be the big investoroni on these cards. It's more so like, look, all the cards I spoke about, they are interesting. It's something to keep in mind in the coming format, and some of these are sleepers and some of these will end up being duds, but you still want to have a thought about them at least. Hope you found this interesting. Again, if you want to buy anything, TCG Player link in the description. Like, subscribe, and I will see you soon. Ciao.